Well, and so my target is that ridge over there. So that ridge isn't just alluvium, that's actually bedrock, I think. And if the published geologic map is correct, it's basalt on almost all of it except for the very bottom. There's a little sliver of granite or something like that, which from here I'm not really seeing. But if it's got desert varnish on it, generally speaking, although basalt is a really dark color rock, so even before it gets desert varnish, it's pretty dark in color. A granite, a true granite, is pretty light in color. But they could have the same desert varnish process affect them and turn black just from a thin surface coating of these manganese oxides. So there's no real way of knowing if that's granite or lava or basalt until I get up there. You know, one of the reasons I'm interested in sampling the rocks here is because this area is mostly covered by these volcanic rocks on the surface that are very young. And if they're granites here, they're almost certainly Mesozoic in age. That's the time of the dinosaurs. About 65 to 250 million years ago. So they were probably from sometime in that period, which is much older. So if we're trying to find out more information about that time and what the volcanoes were doing, it's hard when most of the ground surface is covered by these volcanic rocks that are much younger, from just a few million years ago. So you have to seek out the handful of places where there are these older igneous rocks from the volcanism that came, 100 times or 10 to 100 times earlier. Okay, so it looks like we're finally coming up on outcrop here, or such as exists in badly weathered mountains like this. So far I don't see any evidence of a granite. None of these rocks on the ground look like granite, even without breaking them open. They still have all the little bubble holes in them. But sometimes it's helpful to get a little closer, just to make sure. You know, sometimes you have two kinds of rocks, one on top that makes big boulders and one on the bottom that's very crumbly. You'll just get boulders with the rock on top, and it'll just cover over the rock that's crumbly. So it's probably worth, I should poke around a little bit, make sure there are no little bits of granite hiding out, and maybe even dig a little hole, look at the soil, make sure there are no minerals that look like the hematogranite. But I would tentatively say that this looks like the old geologic map. Maybe just didn't map this correctly. Now I'm not going to cast any shade on them though, because those guys who did that map was done, I don't know, the 50s or 60s, and it covered 1 degree by 2 degree of latitude and longitude. So that's an area, 60 miles by 100 miles or something like that, or maybe a little more than that. So several thousand square miles. And when you're trying to map that kind of area, you can't look at every single hillside. I know, because I've done a little bit of mapping at that kind of scale, and you really have to, you can't comb over every inch when you're mapping several thousand square miles. But I always like to remind my students, just because it's shown on something that's published, sometimes shown, even if it's shown on like an official geologic map published by the U.S. Geological Survey, doesn't necessarily mean it's right. So it's always good to check data yourself. Don't assume that just because someone else said it, it's true. I don't see any traces of granite, even with closer inspection, so it's going to be back to heading up this canyon.